Star Wars Rogue One. This is the review. If you haven't seen the movie, do not watch my review. There's going to be spoilers out the butt. So, you've been warned. Coolest characters in the movie was the blind guy and his sidekick. They were the best characters. Those two were awesome. And I'll tell you why. Number one, you knew what they stood for. You knew what they believed in something. They actually, had a belief in something. They actually stood for something. They played off each other really well. They relied on each other. They needed each other. Those two characters worked. They were awesome. The movie should have been starring them. Should have been those two getting the plans out of the Death Star, their story arc. Why? Because they were good characters. When they died, I actually cared. But it wasn't. It was a movie about that girl and that dude. I don't remember the names. The girl, I remember her real name was Stardust, and I don't even remember what that guy's name was. They didn't play off each other well. They didn't relate to each other. They never really relied on each other. There was no dynamic, no chemistry between them whatsoever. I saw it coming a mile away that he was going to become a love interest. Everything in this movie was completely predictable. I don't even know what they stood for. The guy started out, and I couldn't tell if he was a good guy or a bad guy, because he, ices this guy with no arm, or with an injured arm, and then takes off, and he's mowing down stormtroopers, and then he's about to off the guy that built the Death Star, but then for no reason explained whatsoever, he has some change of conscience and doesn't shoot the Death Star dude, and none of it makes any sense there. When those two died, I did not even care. I was hoping they'd die earlier, just so that they wouldn't be bogging down the story so much. And then when the girl, it was so predictably lame when the girl ends up, it ends up that the girl is the daughter of the guy that built the Death Star, and so she's the one that steals the plans, and she gets the hologram of her father giving that long speech where he's like, "Oh, Stardust, I built a weakness and I did it for you," and blah, blah, and the girl's crying, and wah, my daddy, wah, and all this stuff, and I was just like, gosh, what is this? Are we watching Days of Our Lives here? Get on with all this flipping drama. I don't even care. This is so predictable. It's so sappy and lame. Cliche, corny drama for 2 hours and 17 minutes. The movie starts out, I don't even know what's going on. We're jumping from planet to planet. Can't tell a thing. There's no crawl to clue me in on what point in time we are in the history of the Star Wars universe. Nothing. And then kind of able to piece things together by the end of the movie, middle of the movie, but man, and then we go from there to this completely predictable, sappy story. Not even the girl. Let's talk about the guy that's becomes her love interest. I don't even know these characters' names because they were so lame. But that dude, how would you describe him? What is he? Is he like a Han Solo guy? No. Is he like a hardcore rebel? No, because he disobeys orders. Is he a bad guy or a good guy? I couldn't even tell. Is he in this for himself? Why is he even in this? I don't even know I couldn't even describe that dude. He's not funny. He's not charismatic. There's nothing likable about him. There's not really much likable about the girl either. She's just kind of bland. But it was all right. I could get past that. That wasn't unforgivable. I get past that. Let's talk about that robot really quick. The robot, when I first saw it, I'm talking about that, I don't know his name, Y2 something, whatever, the Imperial droid turned Rebel droid, reprogrammed. When I first saw that thing, I'll admit I flipping hated it. I was like, first of all, the character design. I knew exactly what they were going for. They told these guys, okay, this guy, he's got to be likable and kind of cute, but he's got to be believable as an Imperial droid at the same time. So he has to, how are you going to put this together? A menacing droid that's also has an element of cuteness / likability. So they gave him this little tiny head on this huge body with these super long, goofy arms. and the thing's talking like C-3PO, and I am just like, man, I hate this robot. But I'll tell you what happened. That robot actually won me over. By the end of the movie, I liked it. Once he stopped acting like C-3PO, and he came into his own, and he's like icing stormtroopers and clunking guys over the head and like doing stuff, and he's grown into his own character, that robot was cool. And I was actually sad to see him die. I was hoping that robot would survive because I liked that robot. But the whole point is, once he became his own character, the longest time though, when he's busting out all these C-3PO lines and phrasing and everything, it was just lame. It was like, dude, come up with something else. Here's the problem, okay? Force Awakens, I reviewed that a year ago. It wasn't that bad. I wasn't that critical of it. But at this point now, this franchise of Star Wars, this iteration of Star Wars, is shoved so much nostalgia up my ass. There's no more room in there. The Easter eggs. I mean, why? I don't remember what planet they're on. It wasn't Tatooine. It was some other planet. And they run into the he doesn't like you guy from the cantina. Why? They wouldn't be there. Give me a break. They're just, what they're doing is they're manipulating us. They're trying to play on those nostalgia strings. And it's basically like trying to date maybe she's a really hot girl, but she's not really interested in you, only enough that she's going to mess with your head, okay? She's flattered enough to get your attention and see what she can make you do for her, but she's not serious about dating you. That's like, well, I don't know if that's the best analogy, but that's kind of how I feel about this movie, because it's like the way they're trying to manipulate my feelings. That's why I feel that way about all the like nostalgia references, all the Easter eggs. Look, I don't need Easter eggs, okay? I've got Star Wars episodes New Hope through Jedi memorized, all right? You don't need to stick something from one of those movies into one of the new movies so I can be like, oh yeah, that was in Return of the Jedi, or that was in A New Hope, or whatever. Let's just get right into the unforgivable sin, because I could look past all this stuff that I'm saying, like, the nostalgia, fine, big deal. The fact that the lead characters were the weakest characters in the movie, no problem. The fact that we had the sappiest, lamest, story arcs, all right, whatever. I can get past that. But then they pull out a Darth Vader one-liner, a Darth Vader quip, where he goes to choke that dude. He force choke. Scene's totally unnecessary, by the way. Like, I have no idea what the point of that scene is other than to show Darth Vader, just to give us another Darth Vader scene. Because it really served no purpose. It didn't further the plot along. It didn't do anything. But they have that Admiral go talk to Darth Vader, and Darth Vader force chokes him, releases him from his force choke, and then he says, "Don't choke on your aspirations, Admiral." And that is so out of character. Darth Vader would never say that. He's a serious dude. Darth Vader doesn't crack one-liners. This isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger. We're not saying, this isn't this isn't Terminator. This isn't I'll be back. Or, this isn't Commando. I let him go. This is Star Wars, man. Darth Vader doesn't crack one-liners. And at that point, that was the end of it. They'd taken me completely out of the movie. And there was no redemption for it anymore. I was done. No, it's just, everything in it is just so blatantly obvious. Like, they go, okay, we want it to be kind of like Empire Strikes Back, because Empire Strikes Back's the grittiest of the series. It's considered one of the best ones. Fans like it a lot. The Empire wins at the end. So we got to do, so what was something really cool that was in Empire Strikes Back that we can put in this one? AT-AT walkers. We're going to put AT-AT walkers in this thing. An AT-AT walker. The purpose of an AT-AT walker is to transport troops into battle. That's what they're for. They're for troop transportation. So when they show up in Empire Strikes Back, it makes perfect sense. They're going to war. They're going in to take over the base. They're transporting the troops. And one of the things that was so cool about Empire is in that scene on Hoth when they're looking through the goggles and you see this like vague outline of sort of these like dinosaur looking robotic monsters coming towards them, and you can't tell what they are until they get closer, and then you see that they're these like big troop transporting walkers. It was like the first time we'd ever seen that. And it was the first time the rebels had ever seen those. And if you recall, Luke Skywalker, they're in their fighters engaging those things, and Luke's like, their armor's too thick for our blasters. Aim for the legs, use your harpoons and tow cables. I mean, that's what he said. They had to figure it out on the fly. Now it's like, oh, yeah, no, they've known about AT-ATs the whole time. They're just everywhere. Why would there be AT-ATs hanging out on an Imperial-occupied planet that's so heavily guarded it's got a force field around it, a whole blockade of Star Destroyers hovering above it, and then a completely Imperial-occupied city? There would be no AT-ATs there. But they put them in there because they're like, yeah, the fans are going to love this. They're going to be AT-ATs, and instead of on a ice planet, we're going to put them on a tropical planet. AT-ATs are not sentinels. They're not guards. They're troop transportation devices. I had the toy when I was a kid. I know this. Okay? And so as much as I was super excited and thought it was awesome to see these AT-ATs, I knew I was getting played. And that's in the back of my mind, and I just really was hard for me to enjoy that, especially because they weren't even using them for their intended functions. So that then we did have a Return of the Jedi moment. They crashed a Star Destroyer into the thing to blow up the shield, and in Jedi they crashed the Star Destroyer. They just crashed it into the Death Star. And that was one of the coolest things in Return of the Jedi. And so they're like, what's one of the coolest things that we had in Return of the Jedi that we could put in this? That scene when the Star Destroyer went into the Death Star. So then they made a Star Destroyer smash into another Star Destroyer, wipe it in half, and then crash in. So it's like they one-upped Jedi. And so it's in a way, it's yeah, that's awesome, because it's it really truly is just a billion dollar fan film. Because I'm yeah, you get to see all the stuff I want to see as a fan, but all these guys are taking credit they've made this brilliant movie, and they haven't. They're just they're just riding the coattails of what's already been done. That's all it is. Oh, there's one more thing to talk about. And that is the Darth Vader scene at the end of the movie where he goes down the hallway and ices everybody and's got that lightsaber and he's just blocking bullet lasers and stuff. Okay, I'll admit that scene was rad. I will watch that scene over and over again. But the same problem with that scene. When I saw Attack of the Clones, man, that was a boring movie. The love scenes between Anakin and Natalie Portman were painful to sit through. They were so bad. But then at the end of the movie, you see Yoda in action in a lightsaber battle. And it was so awesome that you forgot about all the bad stuff in that movie. And I just oh, Yoda's the man. This is so rad. I got to see Yoda battle. And then it's not until years later when you think about it and you're you're thinking more about it and you're wait a minute, dude, Yoda would never fight like that. Are you kidding me? It would have been a Force battle. Yoda is supposed to be advanced in the Force. He wouldn't be spinning around doing all these flips and stuff. And then just 30 years later, he's that dilapidated in Dagobah that he can't he can barely even train Luke, and he's that weakened that by the time you get to Jedi, he dies. So it was and it was sort of the same with Vader. It was seeing the raw power of Darth Vader unleashed, that should have been given to us in Return of the Sith, and it wasn't. So it was they gave it to us in this. But by the time you hit by the time you hit A New Hope, Vader's not that powerful. I mean, it was questionable whether he's even going to be able to defeat Obi-Wan, and you're kind of under the impression that Obi-Wan probably maybe could have struck Vader down right there, but knew that he needed to have Vader strike him down. The only way to bring balance back to the Force was that Luke was going to have to confront his own father, and, like there was that whole thing there, and then when Vader, how much time has passed from New Hope to Return of the Jedi? Not very much. It's like a few years, and Vader barely has the strength at that point to even pick the Emperor up and chuck him down that shaft, and that kills him. Like absorbing all the Sith bolts ends up killing him. And so, Vader, while I loved seeing that scene of him just annihilating all those troops, by the time you get to A New Hope, he wasn't that powerful. And we're talking like they hooked it up, connected those two like within minutes of each other, which is another problem because C-3PO and R2-D2 make a cameo in the film. And once again, that's them trying to play that nostalgia strings on you. And they're on the ground watching the fleet leave. So how did they get on the blockade runner that takes off when they were on the ground the whole time watching the fleet go out to the battle? Again, that makes no sense. Another inconsistency in the movie has to do with the sidekick to the blind guy. At the beginning of the movie, that guy's got that blaster, and it's awesome. It looked to me like I thought it was a machine gun laser that like maybe had one of those. I couldn't make it out because they showed it so quick. Maybe had one of those rotating barrels, was like, and he's just like taking down lines of stormtroopers, like no match for that thing because it's just on rapid fire. Then in his last scene, where he, has his heroic death, he's walking around, all of a sudden it's a pump-action shotgun. He's like, I'm one with the Force is with me, blam, 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 chug, 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 I'm one with, and I'm like, wait, what happened? I thought that thing was like an automated machine gun. Now he has to pump it? What's going on? It's so inconsistent. What is this, man? Are we watching Monster Squad now? My name is Horus. I mean, on Monster Squad, that was cool because we knew that it was there. It was a goofy movie, and we knew it was there for no reason other than to be funny. This is supposed to be like based on all the melodramatic drama they shot at us in the beginning of the movie, you can't put in a, like, my name is Horus scene, okay? It's got to be, you got to have some consistency here. And it's just so inconsistent. Finally, CGI Tarkin. If you're going to CGI a dead actor, you got to show their face. You got to show that face like quick, like no more than a few seconds at a time. They should have shown that guy's side shots, rear shots, body shots, stuff like that, and not shown his face, and then boom, just quick, you see the CGI face, and that's it. So that your eye doesn't have the time to recognize the inconsistencies and the artificiality of that image. But they didn't. They've got him in like full dialogue scenes and stuff, and it reaches a point where it's like you're watching a video game, because you can't fake a human that well. Like, the human eye is built to detect, to recognize other humans better than anything else in the world. That's why figure drawing's so hard to do well, okay? Because we can recognize, even if you're untrained in anatomy, untrained in everything like that, you will recognize if there's something incorrect or wrong with somebody's figure drawing. You may not know what it is, but you'll recognize that it doesn't look right. And if you put a CGI human in a film and you show it for more than a few seconds at a time, you're going to recognize that there's something wrong with that thing. And that's exactly what happened, to the point of creepiness, to the point of, okay, are we honoring this actor anymore? Or are we kind of dishonoring him now? Like, he's not replaceable, man. You can't do that. In my opinion, it's like you're saying that this computer program, that this guy is replaceable via a computer program? Get out of here. But if it was just like a quick, like, flash, you know, more, that would have been cooler. I wouldn't have been able to pick up all the inconsistency, all the artificialities of it. And it would have been able to, you would have been able to put that off more as like, yeah, this was a tribute to the original actor. But instead, it just came across as an insult, in my opinion. I thought that CGI Leia worked much better, and the reason why is because we didn't see her for as long. It was like really quick. We just like barely got a glimpse of her, and by the time I'm like, whoa, how did they do that? She looks so much like Leia, like the illusion. You couldn't figure out the illusion because it was taken away that quickly. It was the sleight of hand was not visible. But with that Tarkin dude, it was like they left him out there way too long, to the point where he just looked weird. So that's the recap. This thing, the unforgivable sin is Darth Vader busting out one-liners like, I'm sorry, I can't forgive that. I could have forgiven the sappy story. They came up with some cool characters, but they didn't really. They were all underutilized, and the lamest characters were overutilized. And CGI could have worked, but it didn't because they didn't. And I'm really tired of all the nostalgia stuff that they're trying to manipulate. That's all, folks. Manipulate me with. All right. That's it for this review.